Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest episode of Tales from Outer Space, taken from the subreddit HFY. The links to all the stories will be down below, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. And if you do, please consider subscribing. Story number 1, Humanity's Price, written by Non-Excusat. We cannot afford to ask the humans for help. Jana Lar, the Councillor Premier, was entirely correct. However, this did not prevent the other 6 councillors from challenging her. What does the Honourable Premier propose then? Should we simply wait to be annihilated by the Hyla Horde? Zorgo Boda, the House of O, was not only the newest addition to the council, but also the loudest member. He seemed to not realize this, however, so whenever he spoke, the usual headache caused by the current state of affairs was constantly exacerbated. Janalar turned to the young upstart and glared at him, as if attempting to drill 6 holes into his forehead with her eyes. The Empire has prevailed in innumerable conflicts, quite often against all odds. While this war is not going well, we are still not doomed. The Honourable Councillor of House of O should not let fear overpower his judgment. I knew, even before she finished her sentence, that the youngster would explode at this remark. He was even more deafening than I had anticipated. The Premier speaks of cowardice, yet the lands of her house are still far from the front lines, while we are doing all the fighting. We take the brunt of the Hylar attacks, fighting for each system with everything that we have. There is no cowardice here. We are perfectly willing to die for the survival of our species, but without external help, all that awaits us all is annihilation. However bitter and annoyingly loud the young councillor's exclamation may have been, I feared that he was, just like the Premier, speaking the truth. Our situation was dire, and we could all feel it. The ensuing silence lasted far too long, and was broken only by Geberdursa, the longest serving yet somehow most naive member of the council. If I may interject, I believe that there is still hope to get help from the Zin technocracy. If they pledge aid, their allies may follow suit, which can give us a fighting chance. Collective groans signaled that everyone felt the way I did. The Zin neither would nor could do anything to save us. Zergo Boda took the words out of my mouth as he rebuked the absurd notion. We've tried, everyone. We asked, begged, and threatened every single power in the galaxy, except for humanity. Yet, here we are. Our empire has no friends, and, even if it did, the Hylar would scare them into inaction. Since the Hordes take no prisoners, we only have 2 options. Fight and die alone, or pay the outrageous price and watch humans annihilate our enemy. The thunderous bellow was hard to stomach, but due both to its volume and for its painful accuracy at which it described our current condition. Yet, he was not finished. The Honourable Council should not confuse the pleasant trade relations between the House E and the Tsin with any affection that may hold for the Empire. The technocracy, as all other potential allies, have forsaken us, and we should stop, as humanity says, grasping at straws. The room fell in silence, with a murmuring between several attendees and only sound within it. The Premier could see that she was being left alone, and attempted to reassert her authority. In the event of the Honourable Councillor forgot, I'll remind him that the price humanity demands will cost the Empire 10 times more than the entire annual gross domestic product, not to mention that the other monumental changes that will surely lead to the collapse. And, of course, all of us will become paupers. Is that truly the course of action the House of O wishes to take? Since the alternative is death, yes. I hated this. I really hated this. Unfortunately, there seemed to be no other way out, so I spoke up. I thank the wise councillors. Their advice is, as always, invaluable. Considering our current position and the recent losses suffered, it is with a heavy heart that we have made a decision. Our Imperial Majesty has come to the conclusion that the Empire should approach humanity and pay their price, so that our species can survive. I saw some anger, mostly relief, and some faces in the room. However hard it was to admit, they realized that this was the only non-catastrophic decision that could be made. Kurusanu, the House of U, was first to speak up. I believe I speak for the entire council by thanking the Imperial Majesty for her brilliant conclusion. However, there are some reservations, keeping in mind the immense value of humanity's price. Are we certain that they will defeat the Hylar? And also, could we consider the possibility of reneging on the deal if the Hylar are indeed defeated? What would the humans do if we refused to fulfill our end of the bargain? I was reminded that, unfortunately, my counselor was not staffed with the best and the brightest. Instead, whichever sibling of the house's head was the most disposable, that was who they sent. Kurusunu was an especially clear example of the level of idiocy that I sometimes had to deal with. The Premier seemed just as fed up, so she barked at the moron, almost as loudly as Orgobodo's usual conversational voice. What will humanity do? They'll do exactly nothing, and we will wish for the return of the Hylar. Humanity will simply announce to the entire galaxy that we reneged on our deal with them, as a result of which, no matter what happens, we will never receive support from them in the future. Do you realize how long our species will survive after that? Don't bother counting. You will overload your non-existent brains. Ever since the humans showed up on the galactic stage, they've been the primary deterrent for wars. The Sin Technocracy, the Cabal, the Honorable Counselor of the House of E mentioned previously, would have been swallowed up several times by our empire, if we had not been afraid of them asking the humans for help. And, considering the specifics of the Sin Society, they would have been far more able to pay humanity's price. So, we have done nothing but trade with them. And if you ever bothered to read the galactic history, you would know that there are 3 civilizations that refuse to pay. None survived for even a generation. So no, we cannot cheat the humans. Referring to our counselor in the second person was a grave affront, but nobody seemed to care. Zorgobodo chose us to continue instead of the Premier, who had stopped to catch her breath. As for whether the humans will be able to defeat the Hylar, that is a tremendously easy question to answer. Yes, they will. Humans have never started a war, but they have always finished them. Even if the Hylar are a dozen times stronger than we have estimated, a single human fleet would still annihilate their entire military. So, the outcome of the conflict with humanity on our side is entirely clear. Thankfully, Kurusunu remained silent. It was obvious that the decision had been made and its consequences would be horrendous. Our entire civilization would be broken up by its weight. But we would survive, and maybe, somewhere down the line, possibly after hundreds of generations, the galactic status quo would change and we would reclaim our way of life. However, as of right now, there was nothing else to be done. So, I, possibly for the final time, referred to my counselors. Our Imperial Majesty thanks the Council for its priceless insight. The decision is final. We will approach humanity and, tomorrow, likely at sunrise, we will address the people. You are dismissed. The negotiations with the humans turned out to be as brief as anticipated. The demands were atrocious, but we knew that beforehand. So, just as I had told the council, at sunrise in the capital, I broadcast my message simultaneously to all systems of the Empire. Our fellow citizens, we greet you. May your future be bright. It was with great sadness that we announced to you that the decision made to save us all, as of today, we have entered into an alliance with humanity, meaning that our combined armies will annihilate the Hylar horde in short order. The imminent end of the war is, of course, a cause for celebration, but unfortunately it comes with the weight of an infamous price to be paid for the human support. We would not undertake such a heavy burden in the peril of the Empire found itself was not so grave, but, sadly, there was no other alternative besides all of us fighting and dying bravely. While some of you may have preferred such a choice, in our imperial wisdom, the continuation of our species was considered to be a more suitable cause. As a result, while the Empire will not be obliged to make any direct or indirect payment to humanity, the monumental change will need to make place in our society. We all have to learn to live with it and bear the cost of stemming from it, however much some of us may resent it. As per the humans' demands, starting from the end of this transmission, all slaves, indentured servants, and subservient species are to be granted full freedom throughout the Empire. Each individual will receive the status of a citizen, complete with all the rights and privileges thereof. Moreover, each freed person will receive compensation for their so-called suffering, the exact amount of which will be defined by a committee selected by the humans. In order to raise funds for such an undertaking, the imperial coffers, as well as those of the great houses, are to be liquidated. However, this will not be enough, meaning that you, the citizens of the Empire, will have to share this burden. As clarified by the representative of humanity, all citizens that currently own or have owned a past 3 generations a slave or an indentured servant will be asked to pay their proportional share. Those few citizens who are outside this category will be exempt from the mandatory contributions. Once the matter of payment is decided, the great houses will dissolve, and the humans will assist us in creating a new order. Representatives will be elected by all citizens, including the former slaves, and they will form a new body that will replace the Imperial Council. This new body will, advise the Emperor from then on. These are the demands that were put forth by humanity and accepted by the Empire. We will pay this price, and we will survive. While you may not unjustly feel that your entire way of life is being tread upon, trust in your Emperor. It'll get better. Please, let us get through this dark period of our lives together. Our fellow citizens, we bid you farewell. May your future be bright. End of story number 1. Story number 2. Terran Tears, written by HFY. I had heard that humans were the most compassionate creatures in the universe, but I couldn't believe it. No one could be as genuinely nice as humans were said to be. Evolution wouldn't allow it. As a species as altruistic as legends said humans were would die out, as they lost in competition with other more cutthroat beings. They must be playing it to an advantage. Then Fran Kron fell. I was there. I saw the Domination League lay waste to settlements. I saw them leave. Their point made. I saw the human fleet arrive, saw them set up command centers and field hospitals with a practiced precision that came with a lifetime of service. The humans didn't even have a mutual aid treaty with us. They just heard about the disaster and came. I saw them move mountains of rubble seeking survivors. I saw them pull dead bodies away. Even then, I wasn't pretty convinced. There was a skeptical part of my brain that swore that there had to be an explanation for everything I saw. My eyes could not convince me. Then I heard it, the sound that still haunts me. It reminds me of the day my view of the universe was turned upside down. A human had sunk to his knees in exhaustion from after what I'd later found out was 12 hours of working in the rubble. He took off his mask and, at the time I thought his eyes must have been irritated, as his tear ducts were actively trying to flush them out. And then his body convulsed, and he made a noise that, well, our language has no word for it. I found out later the humans call it a, sob. It reminded me immediately of the cry of an infant, a sound of distress so pure. It was unmistakable. I was stunned. Another human knelt with him and pulled his body close to hers. It was the humans call a hug. There was so much death and destruction that day, but that moment remained with me. I later learned what he was doing was called crying. His tear ducts weren't activated by an irritant, but by the emotional response. In fact, it was the same as an infant's cry. Humans maintain the ability to cry out in distress into adulthood, to show obvious weakness and helplessness. Compassion is so hardwired into them that it was considered evolutionarily advantageous for them to expose their weakness in front of other adult humans. secure in the knowledge that they would assist them. No other known species in the universe had such an outward emotional response as human crying. I don't even have the words for how bizarre that is. It gets better though. Some of their scientists have theorized that they feel better after crying because some of the hormones associated with strong emotions escape with the tears. Their emotions are so powerful that they need a literal physical outlet. Even with all of that, maybe I would have found the humans odd, but not world-changing. Here's the thing though. As he knelt there sobbing, he kept talking, random and somewhat incoherent, but he kept asking, who would do this? Or saying, we've lost so many. Or simply, why? The female holding him began to cry as well. She had just finished a sleep shift. He wasn't crying due to the exhaustion. He was crying for us, for our loss. 2 days ago, he may not have known our planet existed. And today, he was so overwhelmed with compassion for us that his emotions were literally overflowing out of his body and through his eyes. So yeah, when I say that humans are the most compassionate beings in the universe, I'm not just repeating what I've told you. I've seen it. I know. And anyone who moves against them is going to have to deal with us. Branconian Senator Calmless, testimony concerning the human problem. End of story number 2. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed. If you did, please consider supporting the author from the link down below. Otherwise, if you wish to support this channel, there are numerous ways to do so, like liking, subscribing, and possibly even becoming a patron. Otherwise, the easiest way would be to share. And until the next video, I hope that you all have a good one, and I'll see you then. Cheers.